Hello, and welcome to my show, The Thriving Woman. I am your host, Carmel Austin.
Monday, another week, I can't believe I'm counting down the minutes till it's Tuesday. Another day back on.
I will be sharing keys to help you form healthy hearts and boundaries. I'll see you in the show. Hi, friends. This is Carmel here, and I have my beautiful friend Christy here. This is another episode of The Thriving Woman, but it's not just another episode. It is season 3, and on season 3, I have united with a tribe of women and some men from around the world, and we are sharing about the Proverbs 31 woman, about moving into your destiny, about moving into who you are in God, about learning that the things that have happened from the past, and it's given us strength to move into the future. So today I am on with my beautiful friend Christy. Welcome, Christy, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Christy and I met last year when she was looking for speakers for her summit, Pain into Purpose. And I had the absolute privilege of sharing parts of my story with my first book, Just Say No. And have had so many connections through that. I've become friends with some of the speakers. I've reconnected with a friend, Shona Robin, who we'd known for 30 years in my local church that I still go to. And the connections and the things that are growing through that is absolutely amazing. So today we're going to be chatting about the Proverbs 31 woman and who we are with our kingdom authority. And I would invite you, Christy, to share a little bit about your story and what started you with the Pain to Purpose Summit.
Okay. In October of 2022, my husband and I had just celebrated 24 years in marriage, and then we ended up in a hospital room. This was a couple weeks after our anniversary. And I just thought this was just one more time. We were going into the hospital and we were going to come back out like we had for 24 years off and on. And that wasn't the Lord's plan. I didn't know that. For 6.5 weeks, I drove almost an hour to just be with my husband and encourage him and do what I could to just shine God's light to the doctors, pray for them. We saw a lot of God moving in that time, in those 6.5 weeks. Amazing things that, they would come in and check his wounds and say, this doesn't happen. This is healing. This is just amazing. And I would say, yeah, we're praying. And as time went on and I would put things on Facebook, letting people know who were praying for us, what was going on, more people would join and start praying. And I would say the most incredible thing about that 6.5 weeks was that people would come on and to my Facebook or message me, and they would say it was an honor to pray for Dwight, and that they hadn't prayed like that for years. There were a few people that just shared that this ordeal connected them with God again or in a new way.
Wow.
And
yeah.
So it was incredible to watch. I mean, my husband was suffering. Thankfully, he didn't feel much of it, but I felt like he was suffering. Yeah, and it was hard, but I'm so thankful to know that he is forever healed. He's more alive now than ever before.
That's right.
And he he knows. He has all the questions answered that we've always wondered, and he's perfect. So I do have that peace. And I don't know if you've ever thought of how the Lord trusts you with the
Yes.
circumstance. And
Yes.
sometimes it's so hard to imagine, why would God let something like that happen to such a wonderful person? But he trusts us that when we go through difficult times, that we're going to handle it well, and we're going to look to him, and we're going to draw closer to him. And that is what I did. It's all I knew to do. And then when I was by myself and stuck, not knowing what in the world I was going to do, how to move forward, a friend of mine said, God has a purpose with you without Dwight. And it kind of shocked me. Like, well, yeah, of course he does. But I hadn't been thinking along those lines. I was wondering, what in the world was I to do now? And when she said that, it kind of shocked me back to life. And I started thinking
Wow.
about it more
Yeah.
and realized God can use that pain for a purpose. And that's what I wanted to. I didn't want to waste one moment of what we had gone through, and wanted to give it to the Lord and just see what he would do to use it in other people's lives. So I wanted to encourage others with the pain and the purpose that I had found in it.
Oh, Christy, what a testimony to the goodness of God. And we know that, we as Christians, this is not our forever home. And we have
Right.
heaven. And, your husband now has his perfect body and he's with the Lord. And what a testimony of the goodness of God. I know when I shared, with your summit, I was one of the speakers, folks, and it was an absolute privilege to come on with Christy. And Christy was just learning how to do Zoom, how to edit, how to produce this summit. And I was so blessed to be part of that and know that I was just a few steps ahead of her in my journey. And, and watching Christy grow and growing and using her pain and moving it into the purpose. And, folks, that's what the Thriving Woman Show is all about. If you are listening to us, this is a live episode that we are going across Hood Radio. This is a new section of where the podcast show is going, The Thriving Woman, and it's a thrill to be here. If you've listening to me on the radio and listening to my guests, thank you for joining in, because we are here to give you hope. It doesn't matter what situation we're in. It's about realizing that when we go through difficult times, God comes beside us and he walks with us as our Father. And, I know for me, I've been facing some more difficult situations in my life, and I have Italian and Lebanese background, so I can get cranky really quickly, and then I have to pull myself up and go, hold on a minute, Carmel, is this honoring to your Father in heaven? And then I have to talk to him about it, and I'm quite loud and go for a walk with my dog and express how I feel, and then I say, okay, God, you need to help me. I've grieved that, and I'm getting through the grieving process quicker. And why I'm sharing this, folks, is, in my first book, Just Say No, we focused on that with Christy's Summit. And in there, I share about some really heartbreaking things that I went through. I have been married for 39 years now, and I always wanted to be a mother. My mum was obsessed with babies. I wanted to be a mother. And my babies are alive, but they're not the way I expected them to. So they've been growing up in heaven. And so I had to really process all that. I had to walk through all that. I had to trust that God had a bigger picture for me. But in all of that, all that pain, the purpose that I have now is that I'm helping other women and other families as I share my story. I'm helping them write their stories in my co-author books. And so, folks, I've become 3 times international best-selling author, and it's not because of me. It's because I've followed that plan that God had for me, that I was willing to share about my pain, but move into my purpose. So, if you are someone who has dreamed about sharing your story, or felt like, for me, God told me for 3 decades to start sharing my story, I have my next book coming up, Courageous Voices Unlocked. So if you'd like to join me with that, there'll be some things in my offerings. But as we continue on, I want to know a little bit more where you are now, Christy, and what you are doing in that process, because that was such an amazing testimony. Give my audience 3 keys that they can be encouraged with about what you are doing now, turning your pain into purpose.
Well, when I was in the hospital, Dwight was in the hospital, I listened to a lot of Christian music, and it really encouraged me. So I learned that God is my author, and I have to trust him for the story. So there's a song, God is in this story.
Yep.
And that just became such an uplifting song for me. It like my theme, and that is part of where I went with Pain into Purpose, that encouraging people to trust God. He's the author, not us. And if we trust him 100%, we don't need to be afraid of walking into that next chapter that he has written for us. My husband's next chapter began in heaven, and I won't get to read it for a while, but I will someday. And it does exist. It's just in a different book right now than what I'm in. So my encouragement is to trust God 100%, because he's always good. And we can trust that. If we don't see his hand at work, we can definitely trust his heart. And I have always been encouraged by the Bible verse, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans for hope and a future. And no matter what that future has in it, there's hope that God will walk through us, or through whatever we have to face with us. And we can trust him. He knows what's coming. He knows what's around the corner. And
Absolutely.
it's just been, hope is such a huge word for me. It's my favorite word. And I just love the feeling I get knowing that everything will be okay. And God said we can trust him. He has everything laid out. So I do have something that I could share that I've written. Just a little quote here. You've heard probably "The Sun Also Rises." I think it's a book, maybe, but something I wrote in my hope journal
Mm-hmm.
is, hope promises there's a light at the end of the tunnel, a healing at the end of heartache, serenity at the end of struggle. Hope does not disappoint, but reminds that in addition to setting, the sun also rises. So every new day
Oh, that's beautiful,
has,
Christy.
thank you. This every new day is a new chance at hope, and trusting God that he has that day designed with us in mind. He is just infinitely more able to do all that we need him to do for our lives. So we need to just trust him and live out each day in the hope that he has got us.
And folks, when Christy invited me onto her platform with the summit, Pain into Purpose, that was my scripture that I shared, Jeremiah 29:11, where he turns that pain into purpose. And
Hmm.
he is the one who gives us grace. And
Hmm.
he is the one who carries us through our pain. And if you haven't read my book yet, Just Say No, I share about that deep story of moving from grief into purpose, of losing my babies, and but then the joy of having the time to help raise children in the community and children around the world. And then now I'm a grandmother because the connections I've made with people at church, and I have the time to do that, to invest into other people's lives. And we all go through something, and if we're brave enough to say, okay, this is something that's happened and it's in the past, what can I do to help somebody else, or what can I share to help somebody else grow? This is what this series is about. It's about the Proverbs 31 woman, where we're moving into our kingdom authority. And I'm just so privileged to have all my beautiful co-authors or my guests coming on, and we're discovering this journey together and learning more. And what a wonderful testimony that Christy has. She now has a group on Facebook, and it's Pain into Purpose, and I've been watching her grow in there and share in there, and she did what was called mind mapping, and that really blessed so many people in there. And she's planning and sharing and just trusting that through her pain there is purpose in her life. And for you who may be listening around the world and through the radio station, you know, you got to see that we have this God that wants to come into our lives. He wants to personally be with us every day. Like Christy said, what she shared, that when the sun rises, there's hope, there's new hope. And while we're here on this earth, we have that hope. We have that experience where his love can come around us. And how amazing, that people really came closer to God when they were praying for her husband, and all the wonderful things. And what the God of love is about, he just wants relationships with us. He wants us to invite him
Yes.
into our lives. He wants us to come to him and say, I'm not coping, I'm grieving in this area, help me walk through this. That we might go to sleep mourning, but the next day comes and we can still be smiling because we know that he is with us. And it's not a flimsy thing. I've been a Christian for 40 years. And so, I've gone through some really hard things. And, Christy's the testament as well of 24 years of marriage and raising her family, and but being there for her husband. And now she's using this to help other women to grow and to understand that process. I had the privilege of reconnecting with a friend that I went to my local church, Shona Robin, and she's now sharing on this series as well. And so Christy has just been one who has connected me with quite a few of the ladies who shared their stories. And I just feel so thrilled that Christy said yes to me today. So, Christy, I know that you have great plans, and I know that you've got family things going on as well. Share a key with my audience that, even though they feel like they may be stuck, or they're walking through that process where they're with a loved one and they're still with them, and they might be unwell, or they've already passed. Share a key that's going to help them be able to, like you talked about, your girlfriend, help you lift you out of that.
I trust that God always knows what he's doing. Like I said, he's infinitely more able, and he knows what's ahead. My biggest thing is to trust God 100%. I just always go back to that. That helps me with when I'm worried. It helps me with anxiety. It helps me with when I'm sad or grieving. Also, if you have lost a loved one and they're in heaven, I was amazed when I thought about when I'm in church, or when I'm here at home and I'm singing or praising the Lord or worshiping in some way, I'm doing the same exact thing as my husband is.
Yep.
We're doing it together.
Yep.
And that just is a wonderful thought to me. And also the verse 40 Psalm 46:4, there's a river whose streams make glad the city of God.
Amen.
That is my new happy place. If I need to just go somewhere in my mind and forget about the world for a while, I imagine sitting on the side of the stream that's in heaven and
Oh,
just watching the
amen.
water
Yep.
go by and the moss covered rocks and just hearing that water and watching as Jesus comes up and sits beside me on the rock and Dwight joins us and we just
Yeah.
imagine what that would be like and just express my love for the Lord and gratefulness for the life he's given me and what he gave Dwight and me. He blessed us so many ways in so many different situations. So yeah, I try to find ways to celebrate and worship and be grateful.
Oh, Christy, that's so beautiful. As you were talking about that, that's another scripture that I love. And I know when I was walking through my pain and my loss of my children, and I know they're growing up in heaven. And, you know, I had a lot of counseling and a lot of healing in that process. And I have pictured myself sitting at the river with my feet in the river.
Oh
and
wow.
and then knowing that, you know, I actually had a funeral service for my children, and knowing that, you know, they're in heaven. And when I put on praise music yesterday, I had a really difficult day and I was processing some grief with some things with my family, and I put on worship, and it just lifts your spirit to that heavenly place, you know. And
Yes.
God invites us to join him there. He invites us to join him at that river and to realize that we are not meant to carry the burdens of the world, and that we
Yes.
can go to those places. And not only I believe that are you going there in your mind, you're being transported in your spirit, and you're there with God, and they're the special places that God really wants us to share about, to help others go there. And so, you know, I just think about how God has connected us together with our journey into pain, into purpose. And then as you just been sharing, you know, the grace and the beauty of those scriptures and the places, you know, that we go to. For me, at this season here in Australia, it's autumn, and I love to go and sit up in the sun, listen to my birds in my bird aviary next to me, and I read my scripture and my books that I've been reading out of. I've been reading out of a book about the Proverbs 31 woman, and then I visualize, you know, what we're going to talk about with each co-author or each guest, and then I pray about it. And then I, you know, allow the sun to soak into my skin, and I allow God's love to come and give me that confidence. And I like to walk on the beach as well and just feel all of that, you know, wash off me. So this afternoon we're meeting some friends and taking our dogs together for a walk on the beach. So there's so many things that you can do, folks. You might feel like, but oh, you know, you're in a different world and you don't understand. Well, God's there with you. He does understand. He puts you where you are. I know for years I'd think, why is this little girl here growing up in Australia with, you know, Lebanese and Italian roots? And I didn't understand anything. But as I went through the journey of my life, and I had the privilege of visiting Israel, and realizing that, you know, all of our lives are in God's plan, and that there is a purpose in our pain, but we have to focus on our purpose. And that was so beautiful. Thank you, Christy, for sharing that and
You're
sharing
welcome.
all the wonderful things and the testimony of where God is taking you now. So, if you want to join with Christy on Facebook, she has a group called Pain into Purpose. I have a group, The Thriving Woman. And as she talked about God as the author, that's how I feel when I am doing my co-author books, because, lots of friends have said to me, oh, Carmel, just write your own story. And I am doing my heritage book, and I'm illustrating my kids' book that God gave me. And my kids' book is about me as a little girl coming to the South Coast and visiting my auntie, where I now live in this area. And I only realized last year that, oh, this story I wrote many years ago is actually about me. And so I'm having fun doing that and having fun expressing all of those things and realizing that when we allow God to be the author and we start to write that story in our book, and folks, we all have that heavenly book as well, that God is writing our story as well. So we would invite you, if you don't know this God of love that we're talking about, we would invite you to invite him into your heart. We would invite you to get to know him more, to listen to some more of my podcast shows, and really realize that God is a God of love and that he sent his son to this earth so that we could have relationship with him, that there's nothing that we do that can bring us into relationship with him. It's just what Jesus has done. It's what Yeshua has done. And so it's just been an absolute privilege, Christy, to have you on. And thank you so much. And, I would just invite you all that if you want to connect into more of what both Christy and I are doing, go to my offerings page and see what's happening. I'll put Christy's links as well in to the comments, and I'm just excited about the next time Christy and I connect, because she's one of my co-hosts and we're going to be going on this journey together over the next 6 to 12 months and helping you with unpacking your pain into purpose. So Christy, just one thing as we finish up to encourage my audience with.
I would encourage you to just keep on trusting. Your life is in God's hands, and that's the best place it can be.
Wonderful. So, folks, I have some amazing things happening in my life as well. If you are somebody who would like to write your story, or you are writing your own book and you need some help, I would love to help you on that process as a writing mentor. I'm a wholeness coach as well. And I've added some new exciting things to my business as well. So if you're someone who want to do all those things and you don't have the income to do them, or you're looking for some residual income, check out my offerings page, and there's some things in there that you can grow and learn as well. But for now, I'll say I'll see you in another episode of The Thriving Woman. God bless.